Okay, hello children. So the second poem in the class 10 reader, A Tiger in the Zoo. And we know that a natural setting for a tiger is not the zoo. And tiger especially, it's a ferocious animal. It's an animal that is majestic, that belongs in the zoo, in the forest. So when it's there in the zoo, it is in a totally unnatural surrounding, and that's why this poem tells us how important freedom. He stalks in his vivid stripe. Stalk is to walk about, in the cage. That stalking actually when it's moving with its majestic stripe, and in its vivid means very clear. Stripes, the stripes on its body, the few steps of his state. So he is someone who should be stalking in the forest, but poor thing, he is confined in space. He is only within his cage, so those few steps only he can take on pads of velvet rage. Pad is that soft portion under his feet. So these pads of velvet quite, so these should be, he should be using these pads. Why are these pads there underneath? So that he can move without making sound and he can catch his prey. Yeah, but what, it's of absolutely no use to him here because he's inside a cage. So he's going on pads of velvet quiet. So he's not making any sound, but it's of no use at all. In his quiet rage, he is very angry, but he knows it is no use protesting about his condition. He has to keep quiet and he has to suffer it. So he's moving on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. So though he is very angry, he cannot express his anger. Here you can see repetition of the word quiet. So the tiger is quiet because it has no other way out. We have imprisoned it, we have made it helpless, and that's why the word quiet is repeated in the stanza to show the helplessness of the tiger. He should be lurking in shadows, so he should not be inside a cage. The poet is contrasting. He should be inside the forest. He should be lurking, hiding in the shadows. He should be sliding through the long grass, because when he is going to catch his prey, he moves in such a soft manner, isn't it? Such a nice manner, sliding without any friction. He should be moving through the long grass near the water hole. Where will he go? Usually he'll go near the water hole because he knows that the other animals will come there. So he can get his prey there, where the plump deer pass. The healthy deer will come there and he'll be able to eat them. So usually he should be hiding there without making sound. He should be moving and trying to catch them, but that's not what's happening. So the poet is full of pity and he feels sad for the tiger who cannot do what he is born to. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge. So he doesn't go into human habitation. He is in his jungle's edge, and there if someone builds houses close to the jungle's edge, he should be making sound, snarling, that angry sound he should be making, so that they don't come into the jungle and disturb us. He doesn't come to disturb us here. When we go to disturb them, he stops us. Bearing his white fangs, so it is, he's frightening us. He's showing his fangs, those teeth, the front teeth. Okay, and he shows them to us. That it's a sign, okay, you move away, otherwise I'll attack you. His claws, he can also show his claws to show that, okay, now I'm going to attack you, I'm going to rip you apart. Terrorizing the village, so he should be there. That is his natural habitat, frightening us, seeing that we don't enter into his area. He should be like moving about like a majestic king of the. But poor thing, he is in this concrete cell. So he is inside and we are peering at him from out. So he is in his concrete cell, that cell from which he cannot go. And the word concrete is purposely used to show the contrast with the natural surroundings where he should be. His strength behind bars, actually he is very strong, and if these bars are not there, none of these human beings would have been there. But his strength is imprisoned behind the bars. He cannot use his strength and do anything. Stalking the length of his cage, so he can only walk from one end of the cage till the other. Ignoring visitors, he is not happy, okay, that so many people are coming to see me and I'm an object of interest. He ignores them because he is annoyed with them. He wonders why so many people are coming, and he is not happy about it at all. He gets annoyed by this kind of visitors because he is more worried about his natural life. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars. So at night, the cars will be patrolling around to just see if everyone is settled, everything is safe. And he hears the noise. Okay, now the last of the human beings are going to sleep, and there's going to be rest till morning. And then when there are no more human beings to trouble him, no one is there to stand and gawk at him, he looks at the brilliant stars with his brilliant eyes. So both his eyes are brilliant as well as the stars are brilliant. So this repetition is there to show the contrast. Look at the brilliant eyes, and they are imprisoned. He can only look through the cage, whereas the brilliant stars, they're able to shine with all their brightness in the sky. Maybe because they are in the sky, we haven't put them into cages and we haven't robbed them of their freedom. But the poor tiger, he is imprisoned behind the bars of the zoo. So the poet wants to contrast the two brilliant things, the eyes of the tiger and the brilliant stars. One is free, the other is okay. Here is some word meaning. Stalks, that is moving in a quite threatening manner. Vivid bright stripes, the bands on the tiger's body. Lurking, hiding, we can say there's danger lurking in the corners. Okay. Sliding, moving softly, slowly. You all know. Plump, fat. Fangs, the teeth of the that are there in the front, especially for animals. You can find it for when dogs. Okay. Then snarling, that is to make a warning sound, an angry sound. And bearing, showing, patrolling, to go about at regular times to see the area safe. So here we can see the contrast between a tiger in its natural habitat and in a zoo. The inside the cage, it's not able to move freely. It's very it's not got freedom. It's not in its natural habitat, and it doesn't bother to look at any of the people who are coming there. It doesn't notice anything because there is nothing interesting for it to know. There are many poetic devices used in this short poem. One is the rhyme scheme. Then you have so rhyme scheme, along with that rhyming words, because rhyme scheme is based on rhyming words. Metaphor, the tiger's paws are compared with velvet, that's pads of velvet. And onomatopoeia may be a new poetic device for some of you. Onomatopoeia, that's a word which shows the sound. For example, the word buzz, it shows the sound buzz. The word hiss, it shows the sound made by the snake. So there are certain words which resemble the sound they represent, which are similar to that sound, and such words are called part of onomatopoeia. Then personification, here the tiger is personified because the tiger goes on, the poet goes on calling him he. So this is personification. The definition of personification, you can see it on the side. Then imagery, you can see a lot of imagery is created in the poem. The imagery of how the tiger is moving in the cage, the imagery of how the tiger should move in the jungle. It's all described very vividly, very clearly. So the poem is full of clear imagery, especially the his brilliant eyes, the brilliant stars in the sky, all this. So there are a lot of images in the poem. Repetition, words, velvet, quite rate. So quite is repeated, brilliant eyes, brilliant stars, so brilliant is again repeated. So repetition is also there. Oxymoron is when you have two opposite words which come together. In this poem you have quite rage. Usually rage, anger, we associate with an outburst with loud sounds, whereas here it is quiet. So that's why it's called an oxymoron. What is an oxymoron is given inside, that is in the side, any word which is let's say pair of words where you have two opposites coming together. For example, cruel kindness, living death, faith unfaithful, falsely true, all these. And alliteration, you already know alliteration is the repetition of initial sounds in a line, and in this poem we have many examples of alliteration. Then the poet also asks us to compare two poems. One is about the tiger and how the tiger, now in this particular poem that we studied, the tiger has accepted its fate and it is quiet, whereas the other poem that's given here, Tiger by Peter Neblett, we find that the tiger is still rebellious. Maybe it has just been caught, but the tiger is growling, the tiger is snarling, the tiger is roaring, and it's not happy to be behind the bars because it feels it's not able to see properly. So it's looking out of the cage, not like our tiger which doesn't bother about who's coming there. And he says, I don't want to be on show, I don't want people to come and see me. So he says, if I were wild, maybe the hunters may shoot me, I may be poisoned by food, water may drown and all the drown me. But still, he was still growling, snarling, roaring. That means that though he realizes that his life is not safe in the forest, still he prefers to be in the forest, because what happens, we all love to be free. And another poem is again the Panther, which we have been asked to compare with this poem. And in the poem Panther, you can find that the panther is the old one. See, the tiger we saw just now was a young one, whereas here the panther has been in the prison for quite some time, in the cage for quite some time. It's become so tired that it cannot see anything else. He feels that around him there are just bars of the cage, and sometimes it feels that it's not doesn't even feel like opening its eyes and looking. It's become so tired and restless. It's become upset with life. Okay, now the notes are there, you can go through it later on. All of you, please poem again and wonder about why is it that man is so cruel, and why does he make that animals live in a habitat which is not natural to them. Thank you.